Thanks so much for that introduction. And thanks, Hiba, for your presentation, as well as Chris. I learned a lot. And I think they both did a really good job of outlining the importance of food environment research and what it is we mean when we say food environment research. Also, thanks to the organizers for the opportunity to present today. I really am excited to do so. And I'm thrilled at the efforts that are being made to coordinate and prioritize food environment research on the continent. I'm going to be speaking a little bit today about approaches to understanding the lived experience of food environments and the importance of those approaches. But more importantly, I guess the importance of what those experiences, those lived experiences of food environments are and why they're important to take into account when we conduct research on food environments, specifically for informing policies and actions to improve those food environments. As the title suggests, I'll speak a little bit about a community of practice around this area of research that we've convened at the Center for Food Policy at City University of London, where I'm employed. And I'll also share one brief example of a new study that we have launched earlier this year in South Africa, which seeks to take this kind of approach. But as we all well know, food environments play an important part in shaping what we eat, has been explained to us this morning. Yet we also well know that they typically fail to make healthy diets affordable, appealing, and often even aspirational. To improve diets and nutrition-related health, there's an urgent need for policies and actions to radically improve these food environments. And at the Center for Food Policy, this is our primary focus, as our name implies. A critical source of evidence to inform the design, as well as the implementation and even the evaluation of such policies, is people's lived experience, or rather how people experience the food environments around them, as well as the actions taken to change those food environments in the context of their everyday lives. This people-centered approach to studying food environments is currently being taken in multiple parts of the world, and we've heard from Hiba how that was taken into account in the study that she explained. However, efforts are generally isolated and are not typically viewed by, and this is important, not typically viewed by policymakers as important or a critical source of evidence to design or evaluate policy. At the Center for Food Policy, like I mentioned, we've made it a strategic priority to provide evidence of people's lived experience, particularly of food environments, but other aspects as well that relates to food policy, for the purpose of informing the design and evaluation of policy. And I'll share an example of that with you later. In addition to this research that I'll share with you, and in an effort to support the growing community active in taking this research approach, we are also convening an international community of practice to bring together researchers from different parts of the world. The ultimate purpose of the community of practice is to build further evidence of what works to change diets by generating knowledge of lived experience of food environments through collaborations between researchers from across the world and eventually practitioners. We hope to loop them in. The community of practice was started, late last year. We currently have 60 members there or thereabouts, representing 12 countries. To give you a brief overview of the purposes, there's three primary purposes of this community of practice. Firstly, it's to identify and discuss amongst ourselves methods and theories for more policy-oriented research. So this, to date, this has been the focus of the community of practice, and we focused on a number of things around this specific purpose. First is to capture lived experiences of food environments relevant to policy. These methods focus on capturing lived experience of food environments relevant to policy. Again, the connection to policy is crucial for us in this. Methods that sufficiently complement quantitative data, and I think this is also important when we talk about methods that are primarily qualitative in nature and haven't traditionally been communicated as evidence to inform policy. Also a focus on methods that generate ideas for effective policy solutions and adequately inform relevant community members, also another key aspect of the feedback loop. These methods inherently involve a lot of participation with community members, and so keeping them in the loop as far as informing them of findings. And then also methods that explore the use of different theoretical approaches and how these affect the application of methods and results. Or I should say the community of practice has been focusing on these theoretical approaches. The second primary purpose of the community of practice is to enhance the policy impact through evidence translation and communications. We've discussed this in some of our webinars, which has been the primary activity in the community of practice thus far, and hope to take this further. But essentially, underneath this primary purpose of communicating findings, we hope to compare and contrast findings, and then take those findings and talk about how we can effectively inform policy, enhance the value and legitimacy of these approaches. And then also we hope to provide a hub. This is where the practitioners will ultimately come in for both researchers, how policymakers will eventually come in for both researchers and policymakers that are interested in engaging with this type of work. So to facilitate that dialogue, ultimately to improving and enhancing the policy impact of these kinds of research efforts. And then the final purpose of this community of practice is to just generally enable collaboration within and across countries of researchers who are currently undertaking and who would like to undertake this kind of research. So I think the important point that I'll just pull out of that one is one area of focus that we want to, or one area that we want to place more focuses on is collaborating on relevant calls for funding. So identifying those calls. And also key is collectively advocating for this type of research to be better funded moving forward. So that's a brief summary of the community of practice and its aims. Like I mentioned, we've only been going for a year or so, and we're excited to move that forward. Staying on the topic of research efforts to understand the lived experience of food environments, I wanted to briefly share with you one such effort that we're undertaking at the Center for Food Policy, just by way of example. And this is a study that was started in February of this year, so it's still very early on. It's called the Nourished Child Study, or the full title is Urban Food Systems for Healthy Diets in South Africa, addressing the double burden of malnutrition through a coherent systems approach. So it's a South African-based study based in the Western Cape, focusing on systems, how we can understand how different systems interact in land and how we can improve that. This is a UKRI, or a UK Research and Innovation funded study. So we partner the Centre for Food Policy based in London. Of course, we partner with local organizations to carry this study out. And those are listed in their logos on the right-hand side of your screen. So University of Cape Town, more specifically the African Centre for Cities at UCT, as well as partners at the University of Stellenbosch and the Southern Africa Food Lab. But also key in this study, and specifically those that we've partnered with, are the relationships that we've built with local governments, both at the City of Cape Town level, but more importantly at the provincial level. And this has ultimately helped us to, these partnerships started early, so it's ultimately helped us to shape the design of the study. And we hope to inform and complement existing and emerging food-related strategies and initiatives with our findings. So just to be succinct in the aim of the study, it's to define and communicate what a systems approach to improving the quality of diets among children under the age of 5 and women of childbearing age, what that approach would look like in urban settings, ultimately to address this double burden of malnutrition. More specifically, our objectives are first to understand how existing systems that influence nutrition combine to influence diet in the study population of interest. And when I refer to systems, I'm talking specifically about, of course, food system, but also the urban conditions, which includes infrastructure in some of these locations, as well as system of existing interventions. And by that, I mean efforts and activities that are implemented by the government. So for example, child support grants that influence nutrition, activities and initiatives that come out of the health sector, out of educational sector. So primarily government interventions that try to influence nutrition. So how all these activities and actions that come out of these systems combine to influence nutrition. And then as a result of asking these questions, taking our findings and developing a systems approach to optimize the interactions and create coherence between these systems, again, to improve diets. And then to take those findings and make them applicable not only within the study setting and in the Western Cape province, but nationally within South Africa and regionally and ultimately globally. So that's our goal. So essentially what we hope to define is, again, what a systems approach would look like, but starting with the place where existing systems and interventions combine and interact to affect malnutrition, that being with the lives of people who experience the problem. And then to work with those individuals, the participants in our study, as co-researchers, to co-create a systems approach alongside food and other system stakeholders. So the point in the study essentially is to understand how people experience not only the food environment, but other factors within their lives that influence nutrition, and then to do something about that. And the way we're going about that is we're employing a variety of community-based participatory approaches. Originally proposed methods included things like transect walks, community member mapping, also some in-depth interviews, and collaboration workshops guided by one of our local partners that would include specific systems thinking and social innovation methodologies. But however, due to the current pandemic, as I'm sure most of us are very familiar with the challenges that we're facing in adapting our methods, we've had to adapt these methods using photographic techniques and some online approaches. Ultimately, and thanks, like I mentioned before, to the involvement of our government partners, right from the beginning, it's intended that our study findings will directly inform local government efforts and enhance policy impact through specifically funded evidence translation and communication efforts. So that's built into the study right from the beginning. I realize that we're running over time. So in closing, I guess the ultimate purpose of my presentation today is to communicate the need to adequately consider the importance of context in food environment research, which I think most of us are obviously already doing just by the nature of the research, but more specifically to advocate for the inclusion of approaches that seek to understand lived experiences of food environments and other relevant contextual factors. And of course, these approaches, these specific methods would primarily be qualitative in nature and ideally collaborative or participatory in nature as well. If there is anyone interested in learning more about the community of practice, please do feel free to reach me at that email address below. And thank you again to the organizers for allowing me to present in this meeting. Thanks for your